the channel, folks. It's been 3 long weeks since I've been out camping. Unfortunately, last weekend, which was a normal weekend I would go camping, it was bucketing down rain, 100% chance of rain. So for those who watched my video about 3 videos back where I was going out camping in the rain, as I said then, probably the max I'll go to was about 75% chance of rain, so 100%, and it was raining. Yeah, not going to go out camping, so that's all right. Very, very happy to get out this weekend. Decided to go south again. Went north last time and unfortunately came across the grey nomads and their caravans, which is to be expected when I thought about it the last couple of weeks, in that they all head north, of course, in the winter. So being in the middle of winter now in July in Australia, it's quite cold. So I've decided I'll do the opposite and get away from the grey nomads. Come down past Kyogle again and out to another place on another creek to camp. The last time I was down this way I camped on the lake, and I'll show you that video, or a link to that video later in this video. So yeah, this one's a lot more remote. As you've probably been seeing from the opening setup, I'm actually on dirt roads, which is fantastic. That keeps a lot of people away. And we're a good 3 hours away from any capital city or major town. So once again, as I said in previous videos, most people today won't go more than a couple of hours out of town as far as going camping, particularly if it's just one night on a Saturday night. Now, the other thing working to my advantage, hopefully, is that it's the end of the school holidays. This is the last weekend of the school holidays here in Queensland. So once again, I'm hoping there'll be a lot less people or families getting out camping in their 4-wheel drives, etc. And the other thing that's working to my advantage, pardon me, is I got on and booked onto this campsite last night, and it said 10 campsites available, and all were still available last night. So I'm hoping once again they'll have the place to myself. Now, that gave me a bit of an epiphany last night when I was looking on their website. I've said in my very early videos that when I was a young bloke 30 odd years ago, we used to just camp on the side of the road, and there was plenty of flat spots you could just pull up and camp. And I've been struggling to find anything like that. Of course, now that I'm much older, I'm looking to camp spots again. And I think what's happened is, because of the amount of people that trash areas, and you would have seen in my videos, people leaving rubbish and so forth around campsites, even farmers saying, no, you can't camp on the rivers near our farms because people leave nappies and the like, that the national parks, state forests and local councils and so forth have stepped in and said, you know what, we're going to formalise these camp spots, we're going to charge people for them, we'll put in a proper toilet so people aren't just defecating on the ground and leaving toilet paper everywhere. And that way that'll keep some of those, what I call the bad campers away, and keep the place a little bit more civilised so that people still can get out to these lovely creeks and rivers and enjoy them without having to put up with the mess that unfortunately some people still do make today. So that's probably why there's less of those camp spots available at the moment. But anyway, that's enough of me rambling on. I'll show you more once I get to the campsite. Well, this is a nice little camp area, guys, and there's not another car here that I can see. So we have multiple choice as far as where we can want to camp. So let's just have a bit of a circuit around here, and we'll see if we can find a drier spot. There's a nice spot over to my right of the car that I can see in the middle. It looks nice and dry. A toilet there on our left, which is fantastic. So yeah, let's just see what we can work out. We might just jump out of the car and have a look. Alright, just walking back down to the bottom of the campsite here. I'll just turn the camera around and show you guys what I'm looking at. Essentially what we've got here is a little place you can camp. There's a little fireplace over the side here, but unfortunately it's really, really muddy in here. You can see the moss on the ground over here as well, so it's very cold, very damp. There's another one just on the other side here, another table, etc. So probably a little bit cold and damp down in here to be camping. So what we'll do is I'll just show you another part of the campsite here up the top. It's in the middle of the campsite. Essentially what we've got here is a big circle. Campsite's on the outside, but I've discovered at the top here it's probably going up about another 2 meters in height as far as the campground is concerned, etc. And what we've got in the middle here, I'll just flip the camera around again, is a much higher and drier spot. As you can see, the sun this time of the day, 11 o'clock in the morning, is already hitting this area. It's a little bit humped over here, so we'll pitch the tent somewhere in here. And then we've got this hut here. I wanted to show you this hut. It's fantastic because not only have you got some shelter, a great big table to cook on, etc., But in the back of here, you've also got a fireplace. So that to me is an absolute win. So we'll use this table and chairs tonight to cook on, etc. Got lots of coverage from any dew or rain. If it does happen to rain, it's only about 30% chance, but you never know. So yeah, just going to get the camp set up now, and we'll have a bit of a look around later on as well. Alright, so I've made a quick change of plans here. What I'm thinking of doing now is going for a hike rather than setting the tent up. It's just 10 past 12 now, so rather than putting the tent up on top of the wet ground, I'm going to let the ground dry right out. It's just a little bit muddy on the surface. There's a hike over here which I'll show you on the information board in a moment. So we'll have a look at this little hike. It's only about 10 or 15 minutes, which is great. It'll allow me to get a better feel for the area, where the sun's going to go down tonight, that type of thing as well. And then, as I said, when we come back about 3 o'clock-ish, I'll probably put the tent up, set the my bedroom up in there, and then we'll look to about 4:30 getting the fire going. So just going to head out now and see what we can find. So this is the little information board, guys. It's a little bit grotty, unfortunately, but essentially what we do is go from the picnic ground down the bottom right there, and then we'll loop up around the top and come back down again. As I said, I know it looks about to be 10 or so K, so yeah, but it looks like a beautiful part of the world to be hiking. Well, isn't this a stark difference to where I was 3 weeks ago? Up in the jungle again. It's amazing. Last week, or 3 weeks ago I should say, last video, up in really dry country. Now we're back in semi-tropical jungle. Just beautiful country. Very cool and damp in here. It's just lovely this time of the year. And you can probably hear the creek gurgling down to my right here, just down this way. It's yeah, very, very pretty down here. Really enjoying this. Just back from the hike and thought I'd start looking where the tent should be set up. So over this way is essentially west. So you can see the sun coming through the trees here. And then the bright patch here is probably where I'm going to set up my tent, because the sun's going to come up here in the morning, up through there. So this is the hottest, the warmest and the driest spot in the campsite. Now that's the great thing about having a tent as opposed to a rooftop tent. The cars can't come inside this area at all. So that is the warmest and driest spot itself in the actual campground. So just going through here now, just picking up some of the little twigs and so forth, just making sure it's nice and flat. You don't want anything obviously sticking into the bottom of the tent. And the ground is pretty dry, so just a little bit of moisture, but not too bad. So I'm just going to clean up these twigs and so forth, probably give it another hour or so. It's now 2:15. And yeah, then about 3:30 we'll set it all up, and by that time hopefully it'll be fairly dry. So guys, I know you've seen me putting up this tent before, but I just thought I'd go through why I like this particular design. The design of this tent is very similar to a tent I had many years ago from a New Zealand company called Macbeth. And the great thing about that tent was, or what I learned about that tent and why I ended up with that tent in fact, was I did a mountaineering course down in Tasmania. And
the instructor said to us before we headed out, we had to show him all our equipment, and I showed him my old Eureka tent, and he said, no, we'll take your friend's Olympus tent, Macpac Olympus, and I'll show you why. And look, I'll be honest, I was a bit put out. I thought, well, what's wrong with my tent? It seems to be okay. But he showed me when we got out there, he said, just wait and you'll see why we choose that tent. Now, the reason we choose this tent is because, as you can see, it's all going up in one piece. Essentially peg at one end, and then you can just literally put the poles in and start popping it up. So the good thing about this is if it's raining, this is what he showed me, if it's raining, it's snowing, which it was there, the whole tent is still dry. So inside the tent is dry, which is fantastic. Much quicker, much easier, but it doesn't matter if all of this gets wet because it's not inside the tent. So rather than the tents that have the systems whereby you put up the inside first and then the outside second, with this tent you put up the whole thing together. Now you can separate it if you want, but you don't have to. So once you've done that, it's just a simple matter of getting to the other end here, pulling it up and standing it up, and there's your tent set up. So as you can imagine, if it was pouring down with rain now, it would be fantastic because I've now got a dry tent. So if I've still got my waterproof gear on, wet weather gear, that type of stuff, then I'm not getting into a wet tent and then trying to dry it inside the tent as well. It's bad enough that you're dry, but if your tent's wet inside as well, then you're buggered essentially. So this is a really great design. This is not the best tent, it's okay, it's not the best tent. Problem with this tent probably is ventilation, lack thereof. It's great in the winter time, it's nice and warm, but in the summer, it's just a little bit hot. So as you can see, all up and dry, and it's just a matter of clipping up the sides here and showing yourself when you're done. Just thought I'd show the inside of the tent. You can see there's a little vent just down the bottom here. Doesn't do very much at all, and there's a little bit of air that can come through the top, but unfortunately it doesn't sort of flow through. Roomy enough inside. The main vestible's on the other side there, so typically I leave room on that sort of side for all the other bits and pieces. I've got a dry bag in there with things like a raincoat, toilet paper, stuff like that I need to keep dry. That way, if I do go out in the middle of the night and it's raining, I can just chuck the jacket on and do what I need to do. But it's pretty good room-wise. I'm 6'4", so it is a little bit short for me, which is why the bed's on an angle. But it does the job. It was only cheap. It's a little Vango. Very, very cost-effective, but I've also discovered that the floor's not very waterproof. It does let a little bit of the water through. But look, it's a 3-season tent at best, probably 2-season I would suggest. But hey, it does the job, and it was all right for the price. So. Past 4 now, guys. It's a couple of guys now turned up to camp as well. Another guy, Peter, who's just camped outside of the little shed here, which is great. It's very similar to myself, just looking for somewhere very quiet to camp for the night. And another guy, Anthony, on a little postie motorbike, would you believe? I might actually have a look at that bike in the morning and how he set up and how he camps as well. So just enjoying a quiet beer now, just about to light the fire, as I said, just 4:05, so just starting to cool off. The sun's just getting the golden light under the trees behind me or in front of me there. And yeah, we'll get the fire going, and then we'll start thinking about some tea, probably do a 5:30 gun as well, just to do the pensioners' dinner again, just easier in the light, guys. And we'll talk to you closer to dinner. I love a chicken burger, guys. Simple and easy. Dinner is served. Well, that's dinner done tonight, guys. Just sitting here in front of the fire now, finishing off this beer. going to wrap it up for tonight. Unfortunately, sunset wasn't very good tonight, really right down in the deep in the trees, so wasn't any really sunset available, which is disappointing, but that's all right. So I might just get up and go for a walk in the morning, see if we can get a sunrise somewhere. Let's see if we can shoot the stars again tonight. Should be a nice clear night. The campfires, or the campground should say, started to fill up with people, but that's okay as well. Everyone's sort of spread out and doing their own thing. So we'll just wrap it up for tonight, and I'll chat to you all in the morning.
Well, good morning. Just on 6:30 a.m. Just heading out for a hike out through a particular track. It's a loop. It's about 6k hike, about 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on how long you stop. Looking at the signpost back at the head of the track, it's actually closed, but the sign itself's quite old. So I'm thinking, or assuming, or hoping that the National Parks guys have done a good job of clearing most of it already, and I can still get around the loop. I saw online during the week that there's a stand of redwood trees here, which will be fantastic. So really hoping to be able to see that. But anyway, we'll see how we get on. Okay, just back from the hike now. Really great hike, thoroughly enjoyable. Some beautiful old trees in there. Really lovely forest. National Parks guys have done a brilliant job of clearing most of the damage. Unfortunately, couldn't get all the way around the loop. It was closed off at the end, and I think that must be where the redwood stand is. So didn't get to quite see the redwood trees, which would have been nice. There was a couple in there, but yeah, still fantastic hike. Very, very enjoyable. So it's just on 8:30 a.m. now, so I'm just going to head back for some breakfast. Well, it's been a very interesting weekend. Just turned up to the campsite by myself, which was great. Thought I had the whole place to myself, but then over a period of 2 or 3 hours, we had a lot of people turn up, which was okay actually. Ended up talking to a couple of really great guys. One guy turned up on a little Mazda 3 with a tent, not too dissimilar to myself. Another guy turned up on a little Honda postie bike or ag bike, little 90cc thing, with once again just a little tiny tent, a few bits and pieces. So yeah, we ended up chatting the night away, so not too much footage last night, but that's all right. Well, listen, just want to thank you all again for coming along for this adventure. I'll leave a couple of links, a couple of cards. The top one here will be of a lake one I did recently, and I'll let YouTube choose the bottom one for you guys. But thank you for coming along for this particular adventure, and I look forward to seeing you all in a fortnight's time. Bye for now.